Delving into ancient Jewish texts and deciphering Hebrew's hidden meanings, Rabbi Daniel Lapin welcomes you to Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel. Now, here's today's program.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Daniel Lapin. This is my wife, Susan. And together we lead the ministry, the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. We live near Seattle, Washington, and we travel the world bringing ancient Jewish wisdom to everybody, regardless of background. And one of the areas of most misunderstanding that I have found is that people have bought into the lie that religion is somehow bad for society, that religion is bad for civilization. And I am constantly involved in battles in different cities around the country, people trying to get rid of a cross that has stood in San Diego, California since World War I, all of a sudden is offensive. This is very disturbing. A tiny little cross on the seal of Los Angeles County. And this is repeated again and again. Cities around the country, a statue of the Ten Commandments has sat there for 150 years. All of a sudden, this is a terrible thing. And I spend a lot of time and energy trying to correct this in people's minds, making people understand that the Bible is the antidote to barbarism. You do not want to live in an environment of chaos and anarchy and barbarism. And the only bulwark against that is the Bible. And I like people to really understand that it is not an accident. And I want to tell you something really very, very seriously. And that is that in the last 1,000 years, it is not an accident that over 98% of all the technical or medical discoveries, the scientific developments that have emerged, 98% of them have come about from Christian countries, if not specifically Christian scientists. And indeed, some of the key scientists who introduced the Industrial Revolution were people who were devout Christians. And look, I'm an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, but this is really important for us all to understand. Some of those scientists are
Kepler, Isaac Newton. Well, I don't know about the Industrial Revolution.
Leading up to it, though, yes.
There's a lot of misinformation about Galileo, who actually, rather than being opposed to the church, was a religious man.
Exactly right. So we really need to understand, why do you think this is? Is this just a coincidence? I mean, how is it that all the wonderful inventions that make life safe and pleasurable and possible in many cases, medical, technical, transport. I mean, think about it. None of these things were invented in non-Christian countries.
Communication. Samuel Morse is another religious Christian.
Samuel Morse, my goodness, this was the introduction of the telegraph in the middle 1800s. First time information could travel faster than a man could ride a horse. What was the opening words, the very first words ever sent down an electric wire? What hath God wrought? From the 23rd chapter of the book of Numbers. And it's really important that we understand this. And I want to tell you why it is. Not a coincidence. The reason is very simple. The reason is the following. Look, imagine that I said to you, if you were a big enthusiast of Elvis Presley's music, and I said to you, you know, what would you really like to do? If I could let you invite anybody to have dinner with you tonight, who would it be? You'd say, well, Elvis Presley. I'd love to have the king. And I'd say to you, listen, I wish I could do that for you. I cannot. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. However, here's the next best thing. I can give you a day in Graceland in Memphis listening to Elvis Presley music. If you just absorb the work that the man created, you will get to know the man. In the same way, if you want to get to know God, one of the ways of doing that is to get to understand his creation. And therein you get the secret of why so much, an overwhelming proportion, over 98% of the great developments of science and technology and medicine all came about from people who could understand and complete the following sentence. In the beginning, God
created heaven and earth.
We all know it.
So studying heavens, astronomy, space, and earth is
the
the
natural
way
sciences.
to get
it's
to
a
know
way
God.
to get to know God. And that is why people who followed the Bible were the people who led the entire planet in understanding physics and chemistry and mathematics and medicine all along. That's not to say that every single scientist was a God-fearing Christian. He wasn't. But a majority of them, many of them were, and they were part of a culture. Even if they were not practicing, they were part of a culture that recognized it. And that's why it is that in the 1950s, President Eisenhower was able to add the words "under God" within the Pledge of Allegiance. It's not to say that every single American was religious. They weren't. But even those that weren't understood, in a way you don't find today, the centrality of religious faith in preserving the culture and in protecting the environment in terms of safe and tranquil ways for human beings to live.
Now, where does this come in? Where do we start when we're looking at the Bible to say how should human beings live? Where would you go for the beginning?
Well, of the many Torah teachings that it is our privilege to bring to people around the world, I really think that one of the most important to start with is called, and I think, by the way, I think it was the very first one that we've produced. So we wanted people to answer that very question, which is, how do you find patterns for living? And clearly, one of the most important places is chapter 11 of the book of Genesis, the story of the Tower of Babel. And that's what we're focusing on. And perhaps the best place to go right from here is to imagine that a few of us are sitting around one evening, and let's say that it is February or March, and we're sitting around, and all of a sudden I jump up and I say, come on everybody, let's go over to the hardware store and let's buy a whole bunch of 2x4s.
Excuse me?
Huh? 2x4s. Come on, let's go get some lumber.
You know, I'm going to watch some TV. Thanks. You tell me when you get back.
See? Even my own wife.
And we don't even have a TV.
even my wife isn't interested in going with me to the hardware store to get some lumber. You know why? Because there's no passion in that. You know, there's the old story of the traveler watching somebody traveling by the side of the road. There's somebody hammering at a stone, and the fellow's glum and miserable and upset, and he says, what's the matter? He says, oh, I've got to shape the stone all day. And he goes a few more miles, and he sees somebody else, and he's also hammering on a stone with a mallet and shaping the stone. But he's singing a song. His heart is light. He's cheerful. He's got a smile on his face. He says to him, hey, what are you doing? The guy says, I am building a church. See, same action. But what do you see it as? How do you portray it? If I say, come on, everybody, let's go buy some lumber, you look at me as, well, forget that. I'm going to just sit around here. How about if I say, hey, everybody, why don't you come, let's build a deck. And then we can all be done. This won't be hard to do. We build the deck, and soon the summer is coming.
And we'll get a barbecue.
And we'll get a barbecue. We'll put a barbecue on the deck. We'll be able to have barbecues. It's going to be fantastic.
I'll get the car keys.
You'll get the car keys. You're on our way. Let's go.
Because how do we do it?
How do we do it? Well, it's easy. We go buy some lumber at the hardware store. But if you get those messages around, nobody gets excited. Yet, in chapter 11 of the book of Genesis, the generation of the Tower of Babel did it a little differently. They started off and said, hey, everybody, let's make bricks. What for? Well, we can build a city with a great big tower. But you see what's important. In my example, the important thing was the building the deck so we could have barbecues. In their example, the important thing was not the result, but it was the bricks. Well, why need bricks in the first place? Why not use stones? And after all, there were stones there. I want you to think for a moment on what are the two main distinctions between bricks and stones. They're very different from one another. Yes, you can build houses and buildings with both, but there are two very important differences between bricks and stones. And you've got to remember that what we're talking about here is, do you want families, neighborhoods, communities, and societies and governments that want their citizens to be bricks, or do you want families and neighborhoods and societies and governments that want their citizens to be stones? Now, what are the differences?
What do you mean by that? Because, so you're talking about Babel. They're setting up a new... They're leaving the way that the society has been evolving, And Nimrod is coming and saying, hey, I've got a new idea for society. This is going to be great, guys. We are going to have the best society this world has ever seen.
This is a new idea.
And the first thing we have to do, we've got to make bricks.
And what he's talking about is making bricks out of the people. Now, what's the difference between bricks and stones? Well, anybody who's raised children, and we are blessed with 7 wonderful children, all of whom follow the Lord, but each one is different. In fact, it's sometimes hard to believe that they're from the same family. You see, a stone has 2 wonderful characteristics. Number one, every stone is different from every other stone. You'll never find 2 stones identical.
And when you want to build with stone, you have to pay attention to the stone, the shape of it, its weight,
where you're going to put it,
its size, how it fits together. You've really got to focus on that.
And stones are created by
God.
God created stones. Now let's look at bricks. Bricks, everyone's the same. Makes absolutely no difference. If this brick doesn't work, use that brick. They're all identical. One brick breaks, who cares? Get another one. People, bricks, yeah, we want everyone to be the same. How about who made bricks? God? No. You look at a brick, you think brickyard, human beings. You don't think God. That's the difference, bricks and stones. By the way, it's one of the reasons that we used to like to build houses of worship out of stone, where possible in the old days, because it conveys these fundamental messages. Very important to notice that in a family, you don't want to raise all your children identically. What is appropriate for one child is not necessarily appropriate for another, because your children are stones. They're not bricks. And only a Nimrod vision in the Tower of Babel tries to turn citizens into bricks. Everybody the same. We want you living in the same kind of houses. We want you all traveling in the same kind of vehicles.
You don't produce one brick at a time. You produce masses of them.
Millions of them all at once. That's exactly right. That's the principle.
And if a batch doesn't work, well, you toss it out and you make another batch.
Exactly right. And that is a scary vision. It's a scary vision for our families. It's for ourselves. We're not supposed to be of ourselves a model of somebody else, and that's one of the reasons that in ancient Jewish wisdom there is no word for hero. Nobody would say, in Hebrew for instance, nobody would say, there is no way to say, he's my hero, because that phrase is wrong. What it suggests is that that person is somebody you're meant to emulate. And that's why nowhere in Scripture does it say, be like Moses. It tells us the story of Moses' life. Moses was a terrific man. He was very humble. He also had some shortcomings. He neglected his sons. Does it say, be like Abraham? It doesn't say, be like Abraham either. We're only told to be like God. That's a different story. But there is no such thing as being like another human being, because we each are created with our own purpose.
And when we try to, we can emulate and we can say, hey, I see somebody doing something, I would like to act like that. I would like to be more like that. But when you try to say, I'm going to become a clone of somebody else, I'm going to do everything they do, it doesn't work, because God created you to be a unique individual.
And I wish we had more time to tell more of the things that are to be found in the hours of Torah teaching on the Tower of Babel, decoding the mysteries of Babel, but people can still get it.
If you've enjoyed the rich wisdom of Rabbi Daniel Lapin, then we invite you to delve deeper into the mysteries of Genesis with Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel. This Torah teaching best yields its secrets when conveyed by the voice from the rabbi's lips to his students' ears. This audio series includes The Curse of the Skyscraper, Baseball with Cain and Abel, and Pharaoh and the European Economic Community. This handsomely packaged volume includes a Hebrew language study guide too. To order, call 866-338-5033. And for your donation of $50 or more to TCT, you too can still enjoy Rabbi Lapin's easy blend of wisdom and humor, while gaining powerful tools for defending your family, faith, and finances. Reserve your audio volume of Tower of Power today.
Great to be back with you. If you've joined us, I'm Rabbi Daniel Lapin, my beautiful wife Susan, and our work is done through the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. We live near Seattle in the state of Washington, from where we travel the world, making ancient Jewish wisdom accessible to everybody in practical ways that can help shape your family, your faith, your friendships, and yes, even your finances. That is a very, very important part of it. And it's a subject that we treat and we discuss a great deal. But for now, we're looking at a beautiful teaching of the Torah called Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel, because this captures so much of the information you need to protect your family, to protect your friendships, and to protect your faith, and also to protect your finances. Because whenever a society, wherever you live, there is always a tendency for societies to slide down the slippery slope of secularism, a tendency for societies to be pulled by the spiritual gravity of secularism and of socialism, and that imperils your family relationships, it jeopardizes your friendships, and it dramatically endangers your finances. And you know, it's always easiest to solve a problem when you catch it early, wouldn't you agree? Right? It doesn't matter what the problem is.
Or to spot it coming and be able to avoid it.
Spot it coming and get out of the way, right. Yes, keep out of the trouble. And that's one of the reasons we like to lay this material out, decoding the data which the Lord embedded into the words of Scripture by means of the secrets of the Hebrew language. That's what we're trying to do. And I think perhaps something that is helpful to understand here is that one of the big arguments is how to answer one of the most fundamental questions. And you know, here's the great thing. I mean, you can live as a kid, as an adolescent, even as a young adult without ever paying any attention to this question. But once you marry, and once you start building a career, and once you start raising children, you must ask this question. You have to. This is a question which, as far as I know, only has two answers to it. Here is the question. Seemingly simple, but don't be misled. Are you ready? How did human beings arrive on planet Earth? Yeah, that's the question. How did human beings arrive on planet Earth? Now, let me give you a couple of suggestions. Here's one suggestion. The good Lord created us in his image and put us here. That's one.
And that's an answer that I think religious Jews and Christians would all be comfortable with.
We're all comfortable with that one, that's right.
That's common.
Here is another answer to that question. By a lengthy process of unaided materialistic evolution, primitive protoplasm turned into baboons, and then baboons turned into people. Now, please don't laugh when you hear me say that, because it's rude to laugh at some people's religions. And people do believe that as fervently as I believe that the Lord created us in his image and put us here.
But why can't that be a question? Okay, let's discuss that in biology class or in chemistry class in university. Why does that matter? I know what I believe. Why does it matter to me what other people believe?
Well, it's very, very important, because what a society believes is very soon something that becomes part of the fabric of that society. I'll give you an example. Nobody used to believe that it was terribly evil to drink and drive. You know, you think back to a time where people did it all the time.
Something they might joke about.
They even joked about it, and maybe people drank a little less than they do, but whatever it is, it took a concerted mind shift. People changed the belief system in America about drinking and driving. What happened? Legislation followed that ended up with people getting the book thrown at them if they were caught drinking and driving. And you could well imagine the first guy said to himself, hey, I don't get this. Why are you throwing the book at me? Why are you locking me up? I've been drinking and driving for years. You know, my local cop knew about it, never any problem. Law enforcement never. Things have changed. When belief systems change, the society changes. Here's another one, smoking, right?
It was in every movie. It was the cool
Everyone
thing to
smoked.
do.
It was the cool thing. Everybody smoked. And in fact, to this day, there are sitcoms on television that are set back in the 60s, and people are puffing away, men and women all the time. Everybody remembers the Virginia Slim cigarette advertisement. They marketed a cigarette for women. You've come a long way, baby. You too can kill yourself with lung cancer. I mean, that's what the message is. How did all this change? You change what people believe, and you change the society to such an extent that if you happen to enjoy a smoke, maybe you smoke in moderation. It's very difficult to find anywhere to have a smoke other than in your own house. Because
and people will come up to you and tell you you're doing something wrong, condemn
absolutely, yeah. People, and it's okay to mix into other people's business because now it's believed that smoking is evil. Didn't always believe that. So it's very important when you have a society that believes that we're here because of a lengthy process of unaided materialistic evolution. That means that we are nothing but sophisticated animals. It means if God isn't part of the story, then we are here just by a simple process of chemicals. And that's all it is. We are nothing but animals. And I want to tell you that if that is true, if you believe that, then if we're nothing but animals, then all kinds of things result from that. One of the things that results from that is racism. Because, hey, you know what? If we're human beings touched by the finger of God, then, as a wise man once said, what matters is the content of our characters, not the color of our skin. But if we're nothing but animals, well, I dare say the color of skin's mighty important. If I'm buying a brown cow and the farmer sells me a white cow, sorry, I wanted a brown cow. It's a different type of cow. I'm sorry, that's what I wanted. Color of skin matters very much if we're nothing but animals. But if we are human beings touched by God, everything is different. And so it is. Things like even tax policy, how much of your hard-earned money the government is going to take away to spend on programs, many of them outside the United States, that are not things you necessarily support. It doesn't matter. Once you have decided that in the culture, as a group, we are going to believe that we are here just as an accident, a cosmic incident, if you like, well, then we're animals, and it's perfectly appropriate for the farmer to take everything we produce. Sheep don't get to keep some of their wool. Cows don't get to keep some of their milk. Farmer takes everything. If we're animals, then it's perfectly appropriate for this structure of government, which is really our big farmer, to take everything we produce.
And there's no more value either to a human life over an animal life. And cruelty to animals is forbidden by God. But the idea that if it's a choice between saving the life of a dog or saving the life of a human being, if money could be given, if you can save the life of a human being through sacrificing a rabbit, there's no question if we are touched by the finger of God, and we're a different species.
That's exactly right. And that's why increasingly, there are more and more people who doubt the morality of saving human lives at the expense of animal lives. There is even a professor at Princeton University
who is the head of the ethics department.
Bioethics, biological ethics. He himself is not at all certain that human life is worth more than animal life. Why should it be? If we were not created by God, so why should it be?
What you're saying is if that was the belief in the 50s, we would not have a polio vaccine, because the only way we got a polio vaccine was by working with monkeys in order to get something safe for human beings.
Most of whom did not make it.
No.
Sadly.
Again,
think
no,
of the millions
abuse, we're not talking about abuse. We're talking about understanding that an animal can sacrifice for a human.
This is absolutely central. This is why you must understand the key messages in chapter 11 of Genesis, verses 1 through 9. There are certain places where we will flag those for you in this audio CD with which we want to bless you. There are places in that you're going to listen to that and you're going to say, oh, I get it now. This is why they eliminate God. And this is why in every centrally planned tyranny, in every socialist utopian paradise, God is pulled out of there. And guess what happens? All of a sudden, differences between people and animals begin to fade away, and all kinds of other pathologies begin to infect society as well. And the reason, obviously, is that if there is no God, then anything is possible, obviously. And what's more, if there is no God, then it is possible for the leader, the political leader, to claim total omnipotence. He has the power of life and death. He has ultimate power because there's nothing else. There is no God. And that becomes truly terrifying, a prospect that is a nightmare for all of us. And so, as an explanation of the roadmap, if you like, we have prepared this recording, and it's several hours of Torah teaching along with a study guide, which enables you to gain the necessary insight to protect and defend your family, your friendships, yes, even your faith, and even, yes, your finances. We, Rabbi Daniel Lapin and my wife Susan, we're going to feel so blessed to know that you are going to improve your life.
If you've enjoyed the rich wisdom of Rabbi Daniel Lapin, then we invite you to delve deeper into the mysteries of Genesis with Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel. This Torah teaching best yields its secrets when conveyed by the voice from the rabbi's lips to his students' ears. This audio series includes The Curse of the Skyscraper, Baseball with Cain and Abel, and Pharaoh and the European Economic Community. This handsomely packaged volume includes a Hebrew language study guide too. To order, call 866-338-5033. And for your donation of $50 or more to TCT, you too can still enjoy Rabbi Lapin's easy blend of wisdom and humor while gaining powerful tools for defending your family, faith, and finances. Reserve your audio volume of Tower of Power today.
You know, every single Friday night, as the Sabbath approaches and we Jews watch the sun going down, my wife lights the Sabbath candles, we bless our children on that evening. And one of the sentences we use is the sentence that was spoken towards the end of the book of Genesis by our forefather Jacob. And he blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons of Joseph. And we say that to this day. We say, may God make you, my son, like Ephraim and Manasseh. Not like one of them, right? There is no one person in Scripture that we're meant to resemble. But Ephraim and Manasseh captured two parts of life, the internal and the external, the spiritual and the physical. Between them, they wrapped up a certain sense of completion. And the word for completion in Hebrew is the word shalom. But wait a second, that's also the word for peace. Exactly. Wouldn't you agree that true peace can be attained when you have a sense of completion? And part of completion is having a full understanding of how the world works around you. And to give you that, well, that's the reason we prepared Tower of Power, Decoding the Secrets of Babel. We want you to have that completion. And through that completion, may you achieve peace. Shalom.
This has been a TCT Network exclusive production. If you would like to see more exclusive special programs, send your support to TCT, P.O. Box 1010, Marion, Illinois, 62959.